These are the essential Skyrim mods that I use on every single playthrough. Mostly quality of life focused, we're going to be covering some bug fixes, minor aesthetic changes, and a couple of mechanical overhauls to create the best possible Skyrim experience, no matter what type of character you're playing. So the first type of mod we're going to look at are balancing and progression, starting with Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a lightweight perk overhaul, which changes all of the abilities for all of the skills in the game. The main reason I use this one so much is because it feels less like it's changing and complicating the experience in the same way as Ordinator does. It's more like it's just improving the way the progression system works, and adding some quality of life changes to specific parts of it. For example, the first perk in each tree now increases your power with that skill based on your overall skill level, instead of just being a flat increase for each point you spend in it. There are some improvements made to poisons, allowing them to work multiple times after being applied, giving them some actual viability. And the armor bonus perks no longer require helmets, so you can maintain the character aesthetic that you want, without having to lose out significantly on armor rating. There are also a bunch of small convenience tweaks, like the arcane smithing perk having its skill level reduced, so enchanted gear you find can play more of a role in the mid stage of the game, which works really well with some other mods that we're going to be talking about later on. Looking at the leveling system a bit further, we have immersive leveling, which changes the rate at which you earn XP for specific skills. The most noticeably affected are the free crafting skills, which get a 50% increase, so you don't have to spend as much time and money grinding them as you do in the vanilla. Instead, you can let them build up naturally as you progress through the game. Your core thief skills are given a 20% increase, then non-offensive spell skills get a 15% buff. And finally, the warrior defensive skills are boosted by 10%. Overall, this mod tries to help you level your prospective skills at roughly the same rate, and I think it achieves that seamlessly. To go with this, we have Reading is Good, which is going to redesign how skill books work. I've always thought that the way skill books work in vanilla is a bit strange. Reading 1 will give you an increase in the relevant skill, which obviously, because of how leveling works, means that they are much more valuable when you're already quite high in that skill. So really, when you find a skill book, you want to avoid reading it for as long as possible, which isn't ideal. The way this mod changes things is by removing the single level increase given by books and replacing it with a permanent skill XP boost of 2% per book, meaning that they're actually worth reading early on. There's 5 books for each skill scattered around Skyrim, and they stack to a pretty significant 10% buff. So it actually makes them worth going out of your way to seek them out as soon as possible. Next, we have some mods to improve the progression on the gear side of things, starting with rebalanced leveled lists, which fully upgrades the gear found in dungeon chests to feature much more equipment you're actually going to use. Enchanted gear of a relevant leveling quality, rare crafting materials, and more valuables to sell. The main reason I like this is because in vanilla, it feels like you spend the whole game just looting gear to sell it or destroy it to use the enchantments for something else, because the stuff you find is always weaker than the stuff that you've made yourself. But with rebalanced leveled lists, you're actually going to find stuff that's worth using then and there. Another benefit is that it mixes in gear from the Dragonborn expansion, so you can find Bone Mold, Nordic, and Stalrim gear outside of Solstheim. This is especially good for Bone Mold, which is usually redundant by the time that you're powerful enough to head to Solstheim. To increase your loot supply in a specific way, we have Soul Gem Redux, which is going to allow you to craft soul gems from fragments, and it increases the appearance of fragments to show up in mage leveled lists, and as random loot in dungeons. Basically, this mod is just going to make soul gems a little bit more plentiful. Then we have Left Hand Rings Complete, which simply allows you to wear 2 rings at once, allowing for an extra slot to enchant when you're at higher levels. The way it works is rings for your left and right hands are treated as separate entities, meaning only a left-handed ring will work in your left-hand slot. You can craft left-handed rings, and leveled loot includes them as well, but the way it works makes it feel less like wearing an extra ring and more like having an extra unrelated slot available to use for enchantments. With all this extra loot, we're going to need somewhere to sell it. So we have extended leveling merchants' wallets, which increases the amount of money merchants have based on your level. So at the beginning of the game, there will be the same limitations, but as you progress, it will passively increase to make trading more convenient, but in a way that still feels balanced and satisfying. Another area of the game I like to rebalance where possible is enemies. The vanilla difficulty scaling isn't great, so instead I like to use hand-placed enemies, which adds a significantly higher number of enemies to the dungeons and camps of Skyrim, so you have a more difficult experience, but in an actually satisfying way. It also can help create a new experience for you, with the locations you're normally incredibly familiar with now featuring encounters that you're not expecting, especially with the ambush mechanic, where certain location triggers cause a new wave of enemies to spawn behind you, which is a really fun thing to experience for the first time. Unlike some other mods I've tried that add enemies, I like that these enemies have been carefully selected to suit the environment that they're in. So you're not going to have random enemy factions fighting each other. It's stuff that feels like it's meant to be there, either supplementing existing numbers, like these extra Draugr, or by adding new enemies that feel right for the location, like this horde of rats added to a normally empty room in Bleak Falls Barrow. The final mod in this section is more of a feature expansion than rebalancing, but it's worth using all the same, and it's called Winter Sun. Winter Sun fully expands the game's religious mechanics, allowing you to become a follower of your chosen deity, which unlocks a variety of powers provided you follow the tenets of that deity. It also gives you a lot more options than just the 9 divines. You can become a follower of any of the Daedra, as well as the Yakuden and Khajiit gods, the Argonian Hist, and some of the ancient Elven gods. So you can pick something more tailored to your character's backstory. I find this does so much to help bring different aspects of your playthrough together, to make it feel like a cohesive character. And when I find I can't think of an idea for a build, or I don't really know what I feel like playing, starting with a deity and going from there works great. For example, you could be a classic Paladin of Stendarr with bonuses to block and against undead, a champion of Malakath with buffs to power attacks, or a champion of Molag Bal with increased destruction damage. Next, we have some mods to improve the appearance of the game, mainly focused on the user interface, starting with Simple Workaround Framework. This is a great mod that basically acts as the backbone of a ton of modern console ports for mods that were previously thought to be impossible to port. It's also allowed for better optimization of some other mods, reducing their overall file size. It is a requirement for a couple of other mods, so you're going to want to bring it for that alone, but on its own, it also makes your interface a bit nicer and smoother, opening faster and featuring configuration options to make small changes to how things work. One of which in particular allows you to view all of your favorited gear on your character model at the same time, so you look more properly equipped as you travel the land. To go with this, we have Nordic UI, which is going to rearrange the user interface to look a bit better. The default look it comes with has a bit of an Oblivion feel to it, but there are also a range of configuration options available to make it look exactly how you want it. To add to the menus of specifically the smithing area, we have the Art of Smithing, which is a collection of mods that can be installed as a single mod or as a set of independent modules. There are a lot of features here, most famously being Smeltdown, which allows you to smelt a variety of junk and clutter items down into crafting materials, making it much easier to level smithing. With the leveling mods we already have installed, it's not really needed though. The modules I would recommend bringing are alternate smithing categories, which rearranges the smithing menu to group items by type, instead of material, making it easier to compare items you plan on using. Extra craftables allows you to craft items you normally couldn't, like various faction sets, and finally craft lockpicks, which allows you to craft lockpicks at an anvil. Then for playing in third person, we have dynamic camera, which allows you to modify the zoom and the position of the camera to make it a bit less claustrophobic. You can also change the camera when you have specific things equipped. So for example, with a melee weapon, you could keep it centered, but then when you're using a ranged weapon, you can have it sit over your shoulder like you'd expect in a third-person shooter. To improve the map interface and also make travelling more convenient, we have Atlas map markers, which adds extra map markers to the game for more specific locations, such as your player home inside of a city itself, and some areas in the wild that are normally unmarked. The main benefit for this is for places that are normally not possible to be fast travelled to, like the Vale in the Dawnguard DLC. This is great if you're playing with fast travel, but if you're not, a good alternative is 7,000 Steps Bypass and Castle Volkihar Shortcut, which adds shortcuts to skip some of the more tedious journeys that you'd have to make multiple times. Now, looking at other visuals in the game, we have Armor Variance Expansion, which is an incredibly small mod that reuses vanilla assets to create alternate versions of all the major armor sets. This allows you to create a bunch of new and unique looks, but the main reason I like it is it adds more flavour to the bandits you come up against, as they will all have slightly different armour configurations, making them feel a bit less monotone as you tear through camp after camp. Finally, we have Convenient Crossbows, which simply allows crossbows to appear outside of the Dawnguard DLC. So now you'll run into bandits using them just as you would regular bows, which also helps to create a greater variety of bandit, and also allows the crossbow to feel like an actually integrated weapon instead of just a novelty for the Dawnguard. This next section is for bug fixes and quest alterations, although my definition of bug fix is going to include changes to things that could probably be described as poor design choices, instead of just actual bugs. First, we have Transmute Mineral Ore Tweak, which changes the spell, which is used to convert iron into silver and silver into gold. So instead of prioritizing turning your silver into gold, it will first turn your iron into silver. This means if you want to create a load of silver, you don't have to keep dropping it on the floor each time to prevent it being turned into gold. Then we have Genuinely Intelligent Soul Trap. This changes the way soul trapping works so that small souls will no longer stop you from filling large soul gems with better souls. So for example, in the vanilla game, if you have a black soul gem capable of holding a soul up to the power of a human, but then you kill a wolf, it will be filled with a common soul, and then becoming stuck, which is really annoying. With this mod, however, the gem would still be capable of holding that common soul, but if you then later slay a human, the soul will be replaced with the more powerful one, so it's not just a complete waste. Next, we have Dwemer Gates Don't Reset, which stops the gates used to exit dungeons from closing after a period of time, making it easier for you to explore Blackreach over time instead of feeling like you have to do it all at once. Then we have Half-Fire Display Case Fix, which quite simply changes the half-fire display cases, which normally require you to manually place items into them, which is fiddly, and they never stay there when you reload the instance. Replacing them with proper versions like the dagger cases, allowing you to place items in the same way as weapon racks. Now looking at the crime of the game, we have Crime Overhaul, which does some things to make crime feel more immersive, but also more convenient. For example, if you pay off a small bounty, say in Rorikstead, you will no longer be teleported to Whiterun, which is often really annoying. Accidental and infrequent attacks can be forgiven by guards following a yield, without a bounty needing to be paid. There are also more dialogue options now to talk your way out of a low bounty. Another major change is that violent crimes and murder will no longer feature a bounty option, requiring jail time. And then some changes have been made to the experience of jailbreaking to make it more fun and achievable, so it feels more like a viable option instead of just a gimmick like in vanilla. Then to go with this, we have Choose Thief Guild Jobs, which allows you to specify the city you want to go to on your missions from Delvin or Vex, which makes it much less of a grind to complete the Guildmaster requirements and unlock the extra fences inside the Ragged Flagon. Finally, looking at some quest changes, we have J Serpa's quest expansions, which makes changes to a number of quests across Skyrim, mainly to give you more options. For example, Innocence Lost gives you some non-lethal options to deal with Grelod the Kind, so you can start the Destroy the Dark Brotherhood quest without having to murder someone. The Parthenax quest is given more dialogue, and Delphine makes some better arguments than in the vanilla game, but you are also now given the option to refuse her and still become a member of the Blades. The Heart of Dibella is given extra options at the beginning, so you don't have to break into the temple to start the quest. The College of Winterhold has some extra quests added to give you some actual magic lessons, and a handful of Daedric quests like the House of Horrors and the Whispering Door, without serving the Daedra, which is useful if you're playing a good aligned character. It also expands the quests, giving more dialogue and more decisions to make. Then to go with this, we have Buyable Golden Claw, which allows you to complete your Dragon Claw collection without having to steal it from Lucian. The final type of mod is here for convenience, and we're starting with possibly the single most essential mod if you're playing on console: Control. Control adds extra shortcuts for you to use to do things like quick save and open specific menus more quickly. But the main benefit is the new favourite system. You can still open the favourite menu using LB and Y, but now you can assign 8 items to the D-pad, letting you swap between them without needing to open any menus at all. It's great for switching between weapons and spells quickly without breaking up the flow of combat. Or you can use it to control which shouts or powers you have equipped. In the past, I've also used it to allow me to quickly equip a helmet when entering battle, or a torch for dungeons, or a cloak when travelling in the rain. You can also assign potions, allowing you to drink them rapidly without having to enter any menus. One warning I have to give you is to make sure that you install the updated version shown on the screen, not the original, as that will break your load order and you'll have to reset the whole thing. Then some other convenience mods we want to bring are Move Get Out the Way, which causes NPCs to stumble back more easily and move further when they do so, to stop people from blocking doorways like in vanilla. To go with this, we have Instant Mining and Wood Chopping, which removes the animation when gathering resources to speed things up. The version I'm using still requires you to carry a pickaxe and woodcutter's axe, but there is also a version available which removes that limitation. Then we have Unread Books Glow, which causes any books that you haven't read to glow brightly. You can modify the setup of this in-game, and I recommend setting it so that just the skill books that you've not read glow, so you can have an easier time getting your XP boost from reading as good. Now, looking at some travel convenience, we have Carriage Stops of Skyrim, which adds in carriage stops around Skyrim, to allow you to travel to any major settlement. It's a really great addition, especially if you're playing without fast travel. I think it creates a good mix between shorter, faster journeys and still needing to travel a bit to experience random encounters, with you needing to walk to dungeons and random camps, but then being able to get transport back to the settlements quickly, so things don't become tedious. Then to go with this, we have Convenient Horses. Put simply, vanilla horses suck. Their combat is rubbish, and because of the way random encounters work, you feel like you're having to constantly get off and on them, and they always seem to be running out of stamina. This mod fixes that. You're given a quest allowing you to improve and upgrade your horse attributes over time, making them faster, giving them more stamina, and making them more durable in combat. You can also summon them to you, and use them to store items for you. Combat is improved with charge attacks being added, and you can now loot corpses and plants, as well as talk to NPCs without needing to dismount. It does so much to make horses feel like less of a nightmare to use, and I'd recommend bringing it whenever you plan on riding one. Next, we have Functional Homes, which completely redesigns the 6 player homes in the game. And an alternate version is available featuring the Creation Club homes if you want as well. Not only does this make it so that the houses all have every major crafting station for added convenience, it also adds item sorting, allowing you to dump your inventory and have the relevant items appear in containers near their respective crafting stations, which is a great time saver. The new areas are placed in parts of the house that were previously redundant. So for example, Breeze Home has had the dining area replaced with a smithy, and this piece of corridor now has a display for the Dragon Priest masks. The main reason I really like this mod is the linked storage, meaning if you put something in the alchemy ingredients chest in Breeze Home in Whiterun, you'll be able to access it in the alchemy ingredients chest in Proudspire in Solitude. This gives you more reason to want to buy every house, because now they can essentially act as dead drops for you, in different parts of the map. When your inventory gets full, you can dump everything in your nearest house and continue as you were, which I really like being able to do. Finally, we have a mod to give you an alternative to the vanilla start, and that mod is Alternate Perspective, which allows you to begin the game as a member of a guild, patron in an inn, owner of a house, or somewhere out in the wild. An honourable mention here is Alternate Start, which has a more comprehensive list of starts, but it also requires the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch, bringing a variety of bug fixes in its own right, but it also breaks some other stuff and takes up a ton of space, so it just doesn't feel worth it. So generally speaking, my recommendation would be the more lightweight Alternate Perspective. A pretty cool feature of this mod is that when you want to start the main quest, you can return to Helgen and experience the opening scene from an outside perspective, which all these years and playthroughs later is a really bizarre experience. And those are all my mods, thanks for watching. There is a load order in the description with links to all of them to make it a bit easier for you to find. And let me know in the comments what your favourite mod is that you've used on every single playthrough.